Tonight, Scotland's top police officer calls out Rangers and Celtic for their silence over disorder at the Old Firm game. It comes after fans and police officers were injured in clashes between supporters on the pitch at Ibrox.
When we got to Monday evening, there was still no commentary from either of those clubs in respect of the violence that was witnessed. Nobody came out to condemn that violence.
Also on tonight's programme, some train services resume at Glasgow Central, but most of the station remains closed after a fire devastated the city centre. The troubled Glen Sannox ferry needs a new propeller, which could cost more than £3 million after just over a year in service.
And coming up in tonight's sport, Aberdeen are set to appoint St Mirren boss Stephen Robinson as their new manager.
Hello, I'm Laura Miller. This is Reporting Scotland. The country's top police officer has called out Rangers and Celtic for failing to publicly condemn violent scenes at the Old Firm match at Ibrox last weekend. Chief Constable Jo Farrell said she'd not spoken to either club since the events, which saw fans invade the pitch and assaults on a coach and player and a police officer. 9 people have been arrested so far. At the Scottish Parliament today, police defended their response to the incident and said increasing resources around football matches doesn't solve the underlying issues. Selena Jackson reports.
Now they do need to get these fans off the field.
More than 72 hours have passed since Sunday's Scottish Cup quarter-final descended into chaos. But neither Rangers nor Celtic have said a word about it. Multiple people, including police officers, stewards, supporters and a 10-year-old child were injured. Police have warned more arrests will follow. Today, the Chief Constable told MSPs the club's silence isn't acceptable.
Nobody came out to condemn that violence. And we can put more and more resources into football, but that doesn't solve the underlying issue that people should be able to attend those events without fearing for their safety.
She also suggested the club should think about banning groups of ultras.
Is there a responsibility on the clubs to review how they allocate tickets so that these kind of people aren't getting tickets for games?
That would seem like an obvious action that needs to be considered.
Yesterday, fan groups from both sides released statements critical of the policing of the match and urging their clubs to comment. The handling of the pitch invasion has been defended by the Deputy Chief Constable.
Within 90 seconds, and when you're watching that footage, it seems like a very long while, but within 90 seconds, we had a cordon in place. The assurance that I could give you was that our next phase, had that escalated any further, would have been to bring a significant number of horses, and we'd have used our mounted officers.
As the row surrounding Sunday's ugly scenes rumbles on, pressure will only continue to build on Rangers and Celtic to speak up. Selena Jackson, Reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
The first trains started running in and out of Glasgow Central Station's low level today after a massive fire which destroyed a neighbouring building on Sunday. But the vast majority of the station, Scotland's busiest, remains closed to the public amid continuing safety concerns. The building remains under the control of the fire service, with crews still at the scene. Here's our transport correspondent, David Henderson.
A building in ruins. There's not much left of Union Corner after Sunday's devastating fire. Just piles of rubble, twisted metal and this shattered wall. It's caused huge disruption to life in Glasgow.
Well, 2 days on from this enormous blaze and firefighters are still at the scene pumping water into the rubble. That's because they want to make sure that any hot spots in there are fully extinguished. And it's only when they have finished their job that the site can be passed over to the council to decide what to do with this enormous facade. They may have to bring it down entirely.
Central Station, the busiest in Scotland, was right next door to this fire, but it seems to have avoided major damage. For now, the main part of the station is closed and most trains are cancelled. So when will that change?
It's not going to open before Monday. We know that for sure. But we'll do everything that we can do to try and work out different creative ways potentially that we could maybe get the station open. The lower level, for example, is open now, which is great. You know, I think which demonstrates that we've got everyone working on this tirelessly to try and get it open. But the million-dollar question, when will the whole station be open? I can't say yet.
So those local trains were stopping today at the station's lower level, but that's just a fraction of the passengers who normally come through Central Station each day. ScotRail has alternative plans in place, but within limits.
Where we can get services running that would normally go to the high level, we have done. So for example, from Ayrshire and Inverclyde, we can get you to Paisley Gilmore Street, and there's some good local bus services that take you very close to Glasgow Central here, and we're working with bus companies like First and McGill's to make sure that our passengers can travel.
Tonight, fire crews were still damping down the burned out shell, but council officials have been on site to decide what comes next. They've warned parts of the building have collapsed, the rest is in poor condition, and that public safety is their top priority. That suggests demolition is a likely outcome. David Henderson, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
It's been in service for little over a year, and when the Glen Sannox did set sail for Arran, it was 7 years late and 4 times over budget. Now it's emerged the ferry needs new propellers as part of repairs costing as much as £3 million. Despite that, Deputy First Minister Kate Forbes has insisted the ship's challenges are in the past. Here's our political correspondent, David Wallace-Lockhart.
The Glen Sannox on its maiden voyage last year, significantly overdue and over budget. Many would have hoped it was plain sailing from here. But no, it's emerged the Glen Sannox and its sister ship the Glen Rosa need new propellers, costing millions of pounds. The Deputy First Minister, Kate Forbes, was visiting Ferguson Marine today to meet apprentices. This is the nationalised shipyard where these ferries were built. Kate Forbes played down the most recent issues.
It's right and proper that new vessels are checked in the proper way. That is why vessels regularly go in for dry dock periods. But you know, the challenges around the Glen Sannox are well documented. They are in the past.
Not in the past. There's still a challenge here.
There's challenges that are well documented in the past. They've been well covered in multiple parliamentary committees, multiple parliamentary reviews. The point is that the Glen Sannox is making a huge difference to the experience of islanders.
Many will be exasperated to hear that the ferries built at this shipyard require further maintenance, further upgrading. But bosses here say sometimes in shipbuilding, that's ultimately what happens.
The first ship is a first of class, first time that ship's ever been built. So I can imagine the first car coming off a manufacturing facility. I'm sure that very first car will have a few problems. That's what we're experiencing, and that's typical, unfortunately, in shipbuilding because they are small classes of vessels. There are not 10,000 of them.
But this project has hit the rocks again, and some blame the complicated design of these ships.
These are very, very high cost vessels, high cost to buy and very high cost to operate. And when things do go wrong with them, as they do with prototype one-off designs, then they are very, very expensive to fix. So it's much, much better to buy a standard proven design.
Provided some legal hurdles are cleared, the Scottish Government wants to directly award more contracts to Ferguson Marine. But before any new work starts, there's repairs to be done. David Wallace-Lockhart, reporting Scotland, Port Glasgow.
Police Scotland has been reprimanded after an officer from Tayside had the contents of her phone shared with a male colleague she had alleged raped her. The force has been fined £66,000 for the breach, which it didn't report to the data watchdog. Well, for more on this, let's speak to our reporter Louise Cowie, who's in Dundee for us. Louise, what's the background to this case?
Well, DC Leanne Gilbert has waived her right to anonymity to share her story. It was back in 2020 that she reported a fellow police officer for alleged rape. She subsequently submitted her mobile as part of an investigation. 2 years later, in June 2022, material that was downloaded from her phone was shared with the accused officer, his solicitor and his Scottish Police Federation representative. The following month, Miss Gilbert was made aware that her personal data and images, some of which were described as intimate, had been shared incorrectly with third parties.
So what happened then?
Well, Miss Gilbert was of the understanding that Police Scotland had in fact contacted the Information Commissioner's office about the breach, but when she contacted them, she was told that Police Scotland hadn't in fact been in touch, and that was 3 months after the incident. The ICO then went on to investigate the case. It found the force had failed to report the personal data breach within the legally required 72-hour timeframe, and the officers instead thought the matter was resolved after a call to the Watchdogs helpline the same month the breach occurred. Well, today it emerged it had issued Police Scotland with a £66,000 fine and reprimanded the force. It said Police Scotland failed to protect a person's sensitive personal information. It found the extraction of the entire contents of a person's mobile phone excessive and unfair, and a lack of adequate procedures contributed to the unlawful disclosure of sensitive personal information.
So what has Miss Gilbert's reaction been then?
Well, I spoke to her this afternoon and she said that the whole situation has had a profound impact on her life. She hasn't returned to work and says that she suffers from PTSD. Police Scotland has also reacted. It says it has apologised to Miss Gilbert, and in a statement the force said it had not met expectations and regulations relating to data handling. It says substantive steps have already been made to strengthen our processes for handling personal data, as well as increasing oversight to reduce the risk of something similar happening in the future. Proceedings in relation to the investigation into the alleged rape are still active.
OK, Louise Cowie in Dundee, thank you. To some of the day's other stories now. Strike action by teachers could be called off after an agreement has been reached between the EIS union and the Scottish Government. The deal over teacher workload now needs to be formally signed off by the local government body COSLA, which meets on Friday. Parents in some council areas had received notification of strikes starting as soon as next week. A 19-year-old has died at Polmont Young Offenders Institution a year after a sheriff ruled the deaths of 2 other young people there could have been avoided. The incident happened on Sunday. The Scottish Prison Service says a fatal accident inquiry will be carried out. 21-year-old Casey Allen and 16-year-old William Brown took their own lives in separate incidents in 2018, prompting an inquiry which found a catalogue of failures in the system. The convener of Shetland Islands Council has resigned following a notice of motion signed by 2/3 of elected members calling for her to go. Andrea Manson was banned from being a company director for 3.5 years over unpaid taxes 2 weeks ago. Her jointly owned pub owed HM Revenue and Customs nearly £179,000 when it went into liquidation in May 2023. A couple are to be evicted from their home after being duped by a serial fraudster who ran a scam impersonating dead people. Peter Bennett and his wife Jane face losing their home after signing it over to John Sexton in 2011 in return for property titles which emerged to be worthless. A BBC investigation has uncovered multiple cases of alleged fraud by Mr Sexton or his associates in which the signatures of dead people have been forged on legal documents to obtain land or property. Our investigations correspondent Mark Daly has this report.
15 years ago, Peter and Jane Bennett signed over their home to a man they thought was securing their financial future.
It was like a kind of grooming type of thing. We signed it up. Signed into it, believing that there was going to be some kind of utopia at the end of the table.
John Sexton offered the Bennetts land on 2 nearby estates, which he said would be worth £500,000 in return for their £160,000 Coatbridge home.
I'll take your house over, he says, and I'll pay off the remains of your mortgage, and then I'll give you 50% of these titles, the Gertshire estate and the William Dixon estate.
This was the evidence that John Sexton produced to prove ownership, a disposition or legal transfer deed passing the Gertshire estate to John Sexton's close relatives. The deed is apparently signed by the estate's trustee, one Alexander William Lowson, in July 2003. But there was a problem. Alexander Lowson had been dead since 1984. The titles given to the Bennetts were worth nothing.
So you've handed over effectively the keys to your house.
Yes.
And you've discovered that what you got in return were 2 worthless bits of paper.
Yes.
Land that was promised to you
It didn't exist.
It didn't exist.
It didn't exist.
As part of the deal, the Bennetts were supposed to pay the Sexton family rent, but have refused and now face eviction. This is not the only time Sexton has pulled this trick. These modern flats in Motherwell sit on land once owned by railway worker James Watson. He died in 1966 and left his estate to his niece, Annie. Annie Clark died in 1985 without knowing, perhaps, that she had inherited a plot of land that would one day become valuable to developers who would want to build a row of flats like this one. After Annie died, the land went unclaimed. Enter John Sexton. A land transfer deed was duly produced, and here it is, transferring the rights to North Orchard Street to a Sexton associate, signed by Annie Clark, a full 17 years after she died. Sexton's partner then sold it to a developer for £120,000. But Annie Clark's oldest surviving son, Jim, is now aware of the land which should have passed to him and his siblings and plans to report it to the police. The BBC is aware of multiple allegations of title fraud carried out by Mr Sexton, who has convictions for VAT fraud in the 1980s. Mr Sexton, are you a serial fraudster who forges the signatures of the dead in order to obtain property that's not yours? Peter Bennett says you conned him out of his home. He's to be made homeless. Do you have anything to say about that, Mr Sexton? Are you a fraudster, Mr Sexton? Nothing to say. Sexton was arrested in 2022 in relation to the Bennett's case, but has yet to appear in court. The police case and the bid to have the transfer reversed at the Land Tribunal are now the Bennetts' last hopes to keep their home. Mark Daly reporting Scotland.
Now, as the situation in the Middle East remains highly volatile, so too do oil and gas prices. Today, the focus here was on the spiralling cost of heating oil, and MPs have been meeting with the Treasury to work out what can be done. More than 125,000 homes in Scotland, mainly in rural areas, are heated with oil, which has more than doubled in price since the start of the US-Israeli war on Iran. Cameron Bussell reports.
It's Scotland's most rural areas that rely on fuel oil to heat their homes. And it's these communities that have been hit the hardest by the volatile oil price. Here in Ardguy in Sutherland, there are fears it could still get worse.
Doubling and trebling in a matter of weeks is not sustainable for anybody. So, given that we are in a more uncertain world, that we don't know what's going to happen, we need to find a way to protect normal people living in rural communities.
Right, we're just walking out to the oil tank now. It's just around the corner of the house.
In the far south of Scotland, down on the Rins of Galloway, Joe Lynch keeps a close eye on his tank and the fluctuating price of oil.
It does mean you've got to monitor it closely, otherwise there's a chance you'll run out, in which case you have no central heating, no hot water, or you're going to be penalised by paying very high prices.
There are around 130,000 homes using heating oil in Scotland, many of them in the borders. People like Wendy Copeland from Blainsley are shocked at the steep increases.
It's so unpredictable because you never know what the cost's going to be. We have a monthly contract, so we phone every time we need oil to try and get the best price. We were quite fortunate that we filled our tank last month. I think it was 60p a litre, and we're really praying that that'll hope us do us to the winter and that maybe optimistically things will have blown over.
Jeremy Bartlett from Carfrey Mill is also holding out with what's left in his tank, waiting and hoping for cheaper fuel.
If you're planning ahead, it takes some of the ups and downs out of the equation.
But it's not easy.
It's not easy.
Margaret Ray lives in Oxton. She'd welcome more regulation for the heating oil market.
We don't have a lot of services like mains gas, we don't have great public transport, and this is impacting us a lot.
For people in rural Scotland, there's often no choice but to use heating oil, and they'll be hoping prices come back down before they have to fill up again. Cameron Buttle, reporting Scotland, Lauder.
OK, Sheila's here with the sport tonight and some managerial movement in the Premiership.
Yeah, at long last for Aberdeen fans. They've been waiting a while, but they might be edging closer now. Hello there. Aberdeen are set to appoint Stephen Robinson as their new manager after the Pittodrie side agreed a compensation fee with St Mirren to take the Northern Irishman from Paisley to the North East. The Dons have been searching for a new boss since sacking Jimmy Tilleen in January. Tyrone Smith reports.
At the end of last year, Stephen Robinson was the toast of Paisley, having steered St Mirren to League Cup glory. Since then, though, things haven't been so good. They've won just 2 of their 14 Premiership games and are a lowly 10th in the table, although they have managed to reach the Scottish Cup semi-finals. However, the last couple of months is a small blot on an otherwise impressive Scottish football CV. During a 3-year spell in charge at Motherwell, he secured a 3rd place top division finish and reached 2 cup finals. And during his time in Paisley, he can boast top 6 finishes in his previous 3 seasons, as well as that League Cup success. So there are credible reasons why Aberdeen would come calling.
I think his track record's a very good track record, good experience, done exceptionally well, particularly at St Mirren. Passionate guy as well on the touchline, which I think the fans enjoy. So looking forward to, if the appointment goes ahead, to seeing what he's capable of doing with this Aberdeen team, because there's a lot of work ahead of him.
Aberdeen sacked Jimmy Tilleen 67 days ago. There have been various names linked with the job since then. That of Stephen Robinson appears to be splitting opinion among the Dons' support.
I don't know if it's a panic appointment or I couldn't wait for somebody else to come, because it's over 2 months now. So, but he's done all right at St Mirren. He's in the semi-finals and he got the cup last year.
I think we need someone that knows the Scottish football. Taking in foreign managers and players, it's just not working. So I think, I hope he gets it.
Getting a manager for the bottom of the league. I know he's been done okay before, but you want to get somebody that can do something. Well, you just got to give him a guy a chance, haven't we? If he comes along, give him a chance.
Aberdeen's need to get their managerial situation sorted out has been heightened by their continued dreadful form. They're languishing in 9th place in the Premiership table, a place above Robinson's Saints, and were knocked out of the Scottish Cup at Dunfermline at the weekend. Tyrone Smith, reporting Scotland.
Now, Udinese midfielder Lennon Miller says he's getting better every day as he dreams of earning a place in the Scotland squad for the World Cup. In an extended interview that you can watch on Reporting Scotland News at 7, the 19-year-old has been speaking about adjusting to life in Italy and his international ambitions. Here's a flavour of what Miller had to say.
I think I've grown as a player and also as a person. Obviously, you're training with players of real quality every day, and you're playing against some of the best players in the world. So you're obviously going to get better as a player, and I feel like I've definitely got better.
Yeah, and of course the Scotland friendlies are coming up very soon. How important is it for you to be involved in them and try and stake your claim for a World Cup place?
Yeah, you want to be in every squad, no matter if it's these friendlies or a World Cup squad and during the summer. So, not added treat that the World Cup's in the summer, which you dream of as a young kid, and it's one that you want to be in as well.
Yeah, what would it mean to you to be part of that squad going over there?
Oh, it'd be special. And I think I can speak for everybody that one that hopefully I can be a part of.
Now to rugby, and Scotland flanker Rory Darge says his side will need to play their opponent and not the occasion when they run out in Dublin, knowing a win could see them win the Six Nations. Darge has excelled for the national team in a campaign that has seen victories over England, Wales and France after a disappointing defeat to Italy. Scotland have never won in the Aviva Stadium, and Ireland are also in with a shout of lifting the championship trophy.
Our backs were against the wall after Rome, and I think Sione had said in the presser and to the group, you can't expect to lose 2 games and still be in the mix towards the end of the campaign. So, like you said, it's for a while now. It's been win or you're not going to be in with a shout. So it's obviously to be in with any sort of chance after the weekend, we'll have to win.
3 days to go.
I can't deal with this build-up.
There'll be more.
I know. Thank you, Sheila. Now, coming up on the news at 7 shortly, we'll hear from a former addict who went from living on the streets to performing in front of sellout crowds at this year's Glasgow's International Comedy Festival.
You get to stop
creating problems and build a great life for yourself. And when I had that realisation, I was 33 and I was exhausted, and I just wanted to be proud of myself. And I feel like I've achieved that.
OK, Christopher is here with the weather, and it felt like every time I looked out the window today it was a different season.
Didn't it just? Yes, really quite turbulent conditions. Some beautiful pictures as ever from our weather watchers, but more of the same tomorrow, Laura, I'm afraid. Thanks very much indeed. Good evening to you. Yeah, we had quite a number of blustery showers rattling their way through across the country today. In fact, let me show you the radar from earlier. You can see them on the chart there. And now some heavier rain working in towards the northwest. But if you avoided the showers today, actually, there were some sunny moments to be had, captured as ever by our weather watchers. Thanks for those. Through this evening and overnight, that rain, you can see it across the northwest, quite heavy and persistent, and once again it will be windy from a southwesterly direction, gusting close to gale force. Temperatures 5 to 8 Celsius, and then from 5 a.m. a Met Office yellow warning for high winds affecting central, southern and eastern Scotland. So it's a really wet start to the day tomorrow and a really windy one as well. Pretty unpleasant conditions, has to be said. Now, through the course of the morning, that rain will continue to trundle further southwards, but the winds remain high. We could well see some disruption, certainly on the travel front. Here's a snapshot mid-afternoon. The rain still holding on through parts of South Lanarkshire and the borders, but further north, we're now seeing a regime of bright spells and showers, and some of those showers perhaps with the odd rumble of thunder and falling wintry down to around 300 or 400 metres. Still windy around the coast in particular and inland as well, and a cool feel. Tomorrow evening and tomorrow night, those showers still with us. And actually, the snow level just coming that bit further lower. So this is why we've got low pressure situated to the north. This little trough moving in, bringing a spell of rain, sleet and snow, and the cold Arctic air digging in as well. So on Friday, a cold, windy day with blustery showers. And actually through the early hours of Friday morning, you can see that feature, that occluded front moving southwards again, perhaps waking up to a covering of sleet and snow in some places on Friday. Through the day, it's pretty wet through the central belt once again, and once again it will be blustery. But as we approach afternoon, that snow level just going back up the hill. So all told, it's a cold feeling day on Friday. Temperatures on the thermometer 7 to 9 Celsius, but in the wind, and if you catch the rain, feeling colder. That's the forecast for now.
So still a jacket for every eventuality.
I would say so,
every
yes.
kind of one. OK, thanks, Christopher. And that is Reporting Scotland for now. Graham Stewart will be here with your late news around 10:30 tonight. And don't forget to switch over to the BBC Scotland channel for the 7 coming up. In the meantime, from all of us here, good night.